Aloha, this is Reverend Tim Lytle from Unity Church of Hawaii here in Honolulu, Hawaii. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. We have wonderful services and videos and messages. We're so grateful to stand with you in faith so that you manifest the highest and best in your life, because we know where you are, God is. All of God is fully present there. So enjoy our services, enjoy the message, and thank you for joining us. I learned a long time ago that one of the best gifts we can ever have is to learn to forgive. This is years ago, seeing a therapist as I was trying to let go of some baggage in my life. I had some abuse that had happened to me as I was growing up. I had had numerous other things that had happened to me, including a term maybe you haven't heard before, religious abuse, where I had really been beaten up a lot with guilt and other things. And so this therapist said, one of the best gifts you can ever have, Tim, is to learn how to forgive. And one of the best things a parent can ever teach their child is how to forgive. But we need to understand what we mean by forgiveness. There are many inaccurate notions about forgiveness. One of them is the statement that we should just forget it. Unless you have amnesia or dementia, chances are you may still remember what has happened in your past. That doesn't mean that you are spiritually in bondage to what happened, but you know that it happened. You can describe it because it's part of your history. It's part of what's made up your story here on earth. It's part of what's helped to make you and shape you into who you are today. So it's a ridiculous notion to encourage people to just forget it. Okay, that's ridiculous. Another ridiculous notion that some people have about forgiveness is that we somehow mystically have the power to absolve other people of what they have done. Like, I absolve you. You know, some people think, how can I take away responsibility from what someone else has done, from their own actions? How can I let them off the hook? How can I possibly take away their karma and take away their accountability and responsibility for what they've done? You can't. Okay? So get over that notion of forgiveness. Another notion of forgiveness is denial. Well, let's just be in denial. You know, one time I borrowed someone's bicycle. I mean, they insisted I borrow it. I borrowed it, had a wreck on it. And I remember their expression. As they just sort of looked at me like, yeah, whatever. And they picked up their bike. And I said, I am so sorry. I did not mean to wreck it. And they walked away without looking at me. It's okay. It's just a thing. Sometimes we say it's okay and we don't mean it at all. That's not forgiveness. Forgiveness is not denial. It's not lying. You know? Sometimes if any of my family or wonderful people from the tradition in which I grew up are watching, thank you for being such a good influence in my life. But there were times in the church where I grew up that if you were hurt or something bad happened, you're supposed to say, oh, it's okay. It's not okay. Get off of that. You know, and they would sometimes hold these secret resentments. That, they'd act so nice. So, forgiveness is not about being fake. It's not about being inauthentic. Well, what is it? Forgiveness is letting go of the burden that we're carrying. For example, my wife and I, some of you have gotten to know Olga Lucia. And Olga Lucia is very conservative about spending when we go to the store. But I will say, with all the love in my heart, if you're watching, that she has the most amazing collection of shoes and clothes I've ever seen. I mean, oh my gosh. It's like shoes of all types and varieties and colors and styles. It's like, wow, there's a shoe for every day. And so we went to Ireland. By the way, happy St. Pat's to everybody. Yeah. And some of us are Irish American. And so we were in Ireland. Brilliant green. Oh man, the greenest green I've ever seen. I mean, like emerald green. I got it once I arrived there. But it was raining. It rains there a lot. Okay, it's kind of like being up in the mountains here. It rains there a lot. That's why it's so green. And I like to take what I need on a trip. My lovely wife likes to bring what she might need in any possible eventuality, which has come in handy sometimes, you know. And so we were in Dublin. We were trying to find our hotel. And if you've been in Ireland, you know, a lot of these roads were built before, you know, vehicles and so forth like we have now. And so some of them are very narrow and rough and not easy to access. And so I think I was carrying like 3 of those really, really big bags. I think maybe she had one smaller bag. And so, you know, I'm about 10 feet behind her. And I'm thinking, couldn't we travel lighter? And, you know, I believe I even asked her that. Anyway, you can imagine how that all turned out, right? And we had a wonderful time, we went from bed to breakfast, bed and breakfast, and carrying all this luggage with us the whole time. And, you know, I rented a car, so I'm shifting with my left hand. You know, you're on the right side of the car as the driver. And narrow country roads where the rear view mirrors of cars almost hit each other. And, you know, and I thought, surely there's got to be a lighter way to travel. And I think that's a good image for what forgiveness is about. It's about letting go of all this extra baggage. Some of us have collected baggage over the years, and we continue to carry it around. Some of you may have 50 or 75 bags that you're carrying with you at this time. Emotional baggage of things that have happened to you in the past. How you have perceived someone has done you some sort of disfavor, some sort of mean look, something that someone did. And you carry this baggage around with you. Now notice who's carrying the baggage. It isn't hurting the other person at all for you to carry all this baggage. And maybe it's not your baggage to carry. It's up to us to release the baggage. That's what forgiveness is. It's the healing process to where we can actually get to the point where we let go of the baggage. That's why Jesus talked about it so much, because he wanted us to be free. He wanted us to be liberated. Every great spiritual teacher wants us to be free, not in bondage. So why carry the baggage? Some of you just like it. You're used to it. You're attached to it. You're willing to pay the extra fees for extra baggage. I'm suggesting a different course. It's up to us. So Jesus in Luke chapter 6 said, if you don't want to be judged, don't judge. If you don't want to be condemned, don't condemn. If you want to be forgiven, forgive. Now, many spiritual masters have given this same spiritual principle. This is just part of my release process. I'm good. But he's giving a spiritual principle here, and he goes on after this to say, in the same measure that you give, you shall receive. So that which we are holding on to is that which we will experience more of. Let me say that again. That which we are holding on to is that which we will experience more of. So what do you want to hang on to? So he's giving this principle that if you don't want judgment in your life, then don't judge others. If you don't want to experience a sense of self-condemnation in your life, then don't condemn others. If you're wanting to experience freedom, then allow freedom in your life. And that's really what forgiveness means. I did a word study in the Greek New Testament of these words for forgiveness. And the word actually means to let go of something, to release it. That's the primary meaning of the word forgiveness. We've twisted it into meaning so many ridiculous, incoherent things. It means to release something, so we don't have to carry it around all the time. Now, Jesus practiced what he preached. So we're leading up to Easter, and this month, by the way, is the power of strength, signified by the color green. And it's difficult to have strength when you're carrying all this baggage around. When we release the baggage, then we have a whole lot more energy to do what we're really here to do, to really live our mission, to really live in a creative way. And what I have found is that the best way for me to live is to live my mission. My mission is to assist others and myself in the process of spiritual awakening to realize our oneness with God. That's my mission. And anything that gets in the way of that, that weighs me down or interferes with that, I need to lovingly release. Okay? Make sense? So Jesus, all right, leading up to the cross, he's been betrayed by Judas, and he knew it was coming, but he invited Judas to the party anyway. We're all invited to the party. And Jesus had been beaten and whipped and then crucified. Now, the Greek word in the Greek New Testament is kairo, for hand, which can include the wrist. And so a lot of scholars believe that probably the nails went through the wrist, where weight could be more fully supported. And many people on the cross actually died from suffocation. Because as they're in this position, it's hard for their diaphragm to work, and they have to pull themselves up to get their breath and then go back down. If you can imagine the pain and the torture of that, the Roman soldiers were experts at torture, and they knew how to keep people alive for days in this torturous type of existence. So in this state, Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." As a kid, when I read that, I thought, that's just crazy talk. What do you mean they don't know what they're doing? They know what they're doing. They know how mean they're being. They know how vicious they're being. Is Jesus in denial? Did someone slip this part into the gospel story? I mean, that's what I wondered as a kid. Wondering, did they put this in here to just try to make us more sanctimonious and complicate our lives? But what I've realized is that Jesus, who represents our Christ nature, says, "Forgive them, for they know not what they are doing." Most people are doing the best that they know. Now, they may not, their knowledge may be at a limited level. They may not have evolved very far, but most people are doing the best that they know. And what Jesus chose to do here is to release it. He didn't want the baggage. In fact, that's what the cross represents, is crossing out that which no longer serves us. Crossing out that which gets in the way. Crossing out the baggage. Being free. And so Jesus is showing by this model, let go of the stuff. Why hold on to it? And represents that Christ in us that says, I don't need this baggage. I don't need this baggage. I don't need to carry around my perception of how other people have hurt me and continue to ruminate on that and come up with ways that, have you ever had someone say something to you and you walked away from that thinking, next time I see them, I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. Next time I see them, I know what to say to them to straighten them out. Have you ever left a conflicted situation thinking, I'm going to give them some? Yeah. You want to see the Christ? Come on. So, I mean, most of us have that human experience. I was, there is a Swami in town, Bhaktimanga Swami. He's at the Krishna temple tonight at 4:30, if any of you want to hear him speak. And he's walked 4 times across Canada. You know how big Canada is? It's pretty big, okay? Pretty big. Walked the longest highway in the entire world. And so he was walking down a road, and someone in a red sports car convertible slowed down beside him as he's walking. And they shout out, "Get out of town!" You know, sometimes people say things that feel a little mean. Now, how did this dedicated renunciant, this spiritual teacher and guru, respond internally? He thought, man, that burns me. They think I should get out of town. What do I need to say to that guy? And he decided next time someone did that to him, he'd say, come on over here. You want some of this? Come on over. And they realize, oh, man, he had to work through it. Sometimes we get caught up in Maya, in illusion. We get caught up in the game, in the soap opera, and we want to prove we're right. You know, no matter how advanced we may be in our spiritual practice, and Jesus and other spiritual masters are showing us the way. Release it. Let it go. It doesn't have to be a fight for our agenda or proving that we're right. It can be a means of release and liberation for ourselves. Are you willing to release and let go of the baggage you've been carrying, or do you want to continue to hit other people with your baggage? You've been on those crowded airplanes, right? Man, they're crowded. And if you fly into Wichita, I love you, Wichita. If you fly into Wichita, you have to take these puddle jumpers because you just can't fly direct into Wichita on a major airplane. You have to fly somewhere else, and then you get on a puddle jumper. And the little carry-on things, they're not room. I mean, they're dinky, you know. And so people are trying to pull their bags out, and if you're not careful, you can smash another person with your baggage. And that's exactly what happens when we're carrying too much baggage. We begin to hurt others with our baggage. And then we feel better thinking, oh, I'm not the only one who hurts. That is not the spiritual path. That is not the path to liberation. Just like in our spiritual community here, where our mission is personal transformation, co-creative relationships, sacred service, and our vision of a realization of oneness. Anything here that does not fit that vision needs to be lovingly released. In the same way, anything that does not fit our truest, most pure vision for life needs to be lovingly released. Why carry that crap around with us? We don't need it. And we don't need to be hurting other people with our baggage. Let's release it. Let's be free and let go of the burden. Aloha.